Major globe-changing news coming out of South America, and of course the North American mainstream media is keeping it tamped down because it would force them to admit something that they have no explanation for. How is it that Nicolas Maduro is still in charge and the economy in Venezuela is growing, even though there's been no relief in the sanctions, even though there's been no change in the form of government? They're growing. And in fact, the leader of Brazil, Lula da Silva, called together a summit of South American leaders, and the only one who didn't attend was in jail. And he's starting to call out the mainstream media, starting to call out Washington, D.C., for what they've done to that country, the criminal thing that's been done to Venezuela over the last 10 years. U.S. sanctions, worse than war, and truly it has been. And the psychological operations that were used to convince the American people that what was going on in Venezuela was the result of the style of government was just unbelievably successful on both sides. You see, they convinced the left in North America that it was corruption and that it was human rights violations. And then they convinced everybody on the right, well, it's just socialism. And then everybody just bought it. Everybody just bought it hook, line, and sinker. Nobody asked a question, hey, wait a minute. Why is it that on virtually every single topic, you have the left on one side and you have the right on the other? And they are arguing back and forth incessantly. But on this topic, with Venezuela, they stand in total unanimity. Doesn't matter whether it's Joe Biden, Barack Obama, the Bushes, Donald Trump. They're all on the same side. Isn't that strange? But nobody saw it. But thank you to everyone who joins us here at the Florida Maquis YouTube channel every single day for the discussion, whether you agree or not. If you have a valid point, a point that's rooted in thought, not emotion, we'd love to hear it. But of course, we do see a lot of emotion down in the comments, don't we? The Florida Maquis Patreon channel, only $1 per month. There's over 278 videos, I believe, at the $1 level that you can go through going back years and years and years. We're going to have a brand new one up tomorrow for the $1 level. Yesterday we did one for the $5 folks, the brand new level. They've got maybe a grand total of 4 videos now at the $5 level. I don't even know if it's that. It could be 3 or 4. But for the $1 folks, we've got a brand new video up. And you know what it's going to be about? It's going to be about why you're not married. Not if you're single. I mean, there's a lot of folks out there who believe in North America they're married, but technically, biblically, they're not. And we're going to go through that. And it's probably going to ruffle a lot of feathers. And that's why we have to do it over at Vimeo. Of course, if you'd like to contribute more, there's a button over there now. $5 a month, $1 a month, fully refundable. Fully refundable first 90 days. No risk to you. And if you sign up for an entire year, you get a 10% discount. For the dollar folks, it's like 90 cents. Comes up to 3 pennies a day. For the $5 folks, I guess that would be about 15 cents a day. So, without any further delay, Venezuela sanctions. Brazil's president, Lula, condemns U.S. measures and hints at currency to challenge dollar. Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro is visiting Brazil for the first time in 8 years, as Brazil's former president, Jair Bolsonaro, banned him from entering the country in 2019. And that's an interesting question, because we're going to bring up something that I don't think a lot of people have an answer for on this. But Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva has invited him back and hinted at new measures to take on the U.S. You see, they knew what was going on. They knew exactly what was going on. Lula has called the sanctions extremely exaggerated and criticized the U.S. for delegitimizing fellow leftist, of course this is Sky.com, Nicolas Maduro. You see, they never tell you, one thing that they never tell you about this story, this make-believe story out of, let's see if I can find the right tab here. Here we go. Out of Venezuela. They tell you the story that when Hugo Chavez took over, 2001, 2002, that's when everything went to hell. Because he instituted socialism, that's when everything completely fell apart. Well, nothing fell apart in Venezuela until about 2014 when Chavez died. Go look it up. From 2002 to 2013 or so, Venezuela was doing fantastic. But nobody asks this question. Well, wait a minute, hold on. Who did who was in charge before Hugo Chavez? Were things always, so bleak and terrible? Well, no. In fact, Venezuela had the highest per capita income, I believe, in the world at one time. Definitely in the Western Hemisphere. They were far more wealthy than Americans. So you would then have to assume that capitalism was in charge. No. It was just two other socialist parties that were letting the U.S. stick their hand in the cookie jar, so to speak. So they left them alone. Go look up the history of who was in charge of Venezuela when things were really, really good. Before Hugo Chavez, before the U.S. sanctions. Acción Democrática and a group called the Christian Socialist Party. It's COPEI. That's who you need to look for. COPEI. Charlie, Oscar, Papa, Echo, India. Party. Those two parties were the ones that were in charge of Venezuela at that time. But it does kind of get better. De Silva comes out and said, is it his fault, speaking of Maduro? No, it's the United States' fault. This is right here on YouTube. And of course, they're keeping this shadow banned as they do everything else that's important. But nobody asked this question. If Maduro is so bad and so horrible, why didn't Trump meet with him? Who remembers the State of the Union speech where he asked the entire crowd to stand up and give a standing ovation to Obama Jr. here, random guy named Juan? I mean, he met with this guy. I mean, this guy's a butcher. So was his father. And he met with these people. These guys they run an Islamic caliphate. Venezuela's a Christian country. I mean, if this was Ron DeSantis and his wife standing here, do you think we'd be hearing about it? And don't get me started here. Gave this guy a medal. Another guy, Muhammadu Buhari from Nigeria. See, it was okay to meet with these dictators. I mean, what was the deal with Maduro? You see, there's a certain thing that doesn't go on in Venezuela that goes on in the rest of the world. And it kind of ties into this story. This is from March 19th, 2016. Soros, Trump, Chicago. Now, everything I'm going to read for you is fact. It's not debatable. It's not opinion. It's fact. And it's sourced. And I will give you all the links and you can source it yourself. Into did George Soros free Donald Trump of a $312 million debt, and why did he do it? In 2005, Trump started construction on his skyscraper, the Trump International Hotel and Tower in Chicago. To build the tower, billionaire Donald Trump received a loan. A loan? Why would he need a loan? From Deutsche Bank for $650 million. Trump also received a smaller, what they call mezzanine loan for $160 million. Guess who from? A group of private investors, including George Soros, Fortress Investment Group, and Blackacre Capital. Listen to me. Capital. The loan was estimated by the Wall Street Journal of having a total value as high as $360 million, meaning that if Trump had paid out all the interest and not paid it off early, that's how much it could have been worth. By October 2008, Trump had sold nearly $600 million in condo and condo hotel units. Now pay attention. $650 million loan and then another $160. So what does that come to? About $810 million. By October 2008, $600 million in condo and condo sales. More than half of the total value of the units in his tower. So he's doing all right. After 7 years, 2005 to 2012, Trump was on his way to paying off his main construction loan to Deutsche Bank. But for reasons unexplained to the public, the majority of Trump's mezzanine loan, the other $160 million, was quietly forgiven by George Soros, Blackacre, and what's the other one? Fortress Investment. No media outlet covering the deal has put together the pieces and told the public that George Soros let Donald Trump off the hook for what has been valued to between somewhere $82 million if he pays it off early, $312 million if he pays it off late, in debt. So why would Soros give what amounts to a massive debt relief to Trump during a financially successful period in Trump's life? Are they friends? Are they business partners? What's going on? In 2005, when Trump began financing the construction of the residential tower in Chicago, he needed more than just the basic loan. Now, mezzanine loans are like loan shark loans, like payday loans. That means that super high interest, you pay it off quick, or they come take what you got. 20 to 30% interest rates, huge interest rates. Soros, along with this group, gave a $160 million loan to Trump to do this. Now, here's where things get weird. Very, very strange. By October of 2008, the tower was almost complete. Trump had sold almost $600 million worth in condo. So he had money. He could have paid off the mezzanine loan, paid off the high interest loan, that 160, and then still had money left over to put toward the Deutsche Bank loans. So that wouldn't have been a problem. In 2012, Trump continued to owe money to his lenders, but sales of his condominiums had picked up and his tower had 69% occupancy rate. As Crane Chicago put it, the region's housing and condo market is still mired in a historic slump, but when it comes to buying and selling in Chicago's high-end condo market, life is surprisingly good. Condominium owners at the $850 million Trump International Hotel and Tower and other newer top-end buildings have, more often than not, experienced value appreciation when they sold in recent years. So he wasn't making a profit, but he was making a hell of a lot of revenue. So he could have easily paid that loan off. After numbers of years have passed, several things are likely to have happened. The mortgage has been significantly paid down, the value of the underlying building has increased, and the owner has waited for a time in the economic cycle where mortgage rates are low. At that point, they will refinance the original mortgage and put the balance to work somewhere else where it can make even more money. But Trump didn't have to worry about paying back the mezzanine loan because this same group of people, these same three group of people, Soros, Fortress, and Blackacre, decided to forgive Trump's future interest payments on the loan, selling it to him at the massively reduced price of $48 million. Now, at a minimum, they were going to get $115 million, but it could have been as much as $312, and they sold it for $48 million. I mean, that's a huge amount of debt forgiveness for no explicable reason. And nobody has been able to figure this out ever since then. In a further twist of story in the same article, after buying out the junior debt, Mr. Trump says he now owes about $120 million on the building that comes due in a year and a half. That's the Deutsche Bank loan. The aforementioned shows us that in 2012, Trump had already paid off most of the Deutsche Bank loan before Soros came in and wiped out the mezzanine debt. Why wasn't Trump expected by Soros, Fortress, and Blackacre to pay back their riskier high-interest mezzanine loan? Also, how was Trump able to pay down his Deutsche Bank loan, demonstrating the means to pay off all his loans, yet still have Soros and the others give him somewhere between $82 and $312 million in debt? Remember, this guy's supposed to be a billionaire. He's supposed to have billions and billions of dollars in net worth. And we're talking about tens of millions of dollars here. And also, they scrubbed Soros and Blackacre from the coverage at that time. Now, this is 2016 when somebody was writing about this. Do you have an answer? Why is Trump taking money from this guy? Why is this guy forgiven money? I mean, in huge amounts. If they're so much at each other's throats and they're not on the same team. You see, things start to kind of make sense. Things really start to make sense when you put it all together. Because it's easy to go out and run your nap, but Soros this, Soros that, Soros that. Really? Why do you need everybody to hate Soros so much, Mr. Trump? Why do you need everybody to think that you're big enemies? Why do you need everybody to think you and Hillary are big enemies? Why do you need everybody to think that you and Soros are big enemies? When we have pictures of you giving him big hugs, we have you asking for people to give standing ovations to Hillary Clinton. When we have pictures of you shaking hands with dictators around the world. Like this one. Standing with the leaders of Saudi Arabia. And this guy, and this. Does any of this start to click or make sense about who this guy really is? And why? You just believe what he says? Because he says it? He says it, so it must be true. That's pretty much the mantra of MAGA. He says it, ergo I believe him, so it must be true. He couldn't possibly lie. Donald Trump would never lie to us. I mean, he'd lie to all those people in Washington, D.C. to kind of get in with him, because you got to keep your friends closer, your enemies closer. He'd lie to them. But he would never lie to me. Especially where money was involved, especially if it was hundreds of millions of dollars. So, just thought I'd put that little puzzle piece together for you there. So, keep your eyes on Brazil. Keep your eyes on Brazil. Down in the comment section, first pinned comment, I'm going to give you a link to the wiki on the economy of Brazil. Since 2006 and 2007, unlike what Donald Trump says, Brazil was actually self-sufficient in oil. That means that all of the oil they produce, they have the refineries to create all of the things that they need. They don't need to import any oil. However, the United States, even though Donald Trump said we were energy self-sufficient, was completely wrong. What happened is we started exporting oil at a greater rate than we were importing it. So that means that in his mind, it's like, well, if we export more than we import, that means that we're, net self-sufficient. That's not what that means. There would be no way we could stop importing oil no matter how much we produced. Because the oil we produce here in the United States, we don't have the refineries to set up to make the amount we need for the things that we need. Unlike Brazil. So, anyway, Brazil is one of the world leaders in cotton, in beef, in, I think, chicken. They're number one. All sorts of food exports, they lead the world in. And if they buddy up with Venezuela and they create a new Gran Colombia where they can unite South America, well, good news. You won't see people coming to our border. You won't see people coming to the southern border. That's for sure. They're going to be heading the other way, especially if they take the Panama Canal and hold the Panama Canal. The resources in Brazil. Brazil is in the top 5 or 6 militaries in the world. Believe it or not, they're only number 2 to the United States. And given the woke state of our military, I wouldn't want to get into a ground fight, especially in the jungle, with the Brazilians. I think we'd get our ass kicked, to be honest. I mean, yeah, we could send aircraft carriers down there and we could launch missiles, but if it actually came down to a real war, a shooting war, a ground war, I don't think we'd stand a chance. But I will leave it there. But those of you who have stepped up, those of you who have decided to help me with the censorship, help me fight back against YouTube, thank you. That $1 means everything. I know it doesn't seem like it's that big a deal if it's just $1, but when it's large groups of people, look what happened to Bud Light. Just the average Joe saying, I'm not buying a case of beer this week, across the whole country, has tanked what was the number one beer. Same things happening to Target, and same things happening to a lot of places. So it's a big deal. It's a huge deal. That $1. So God bless. Thank you so much. Everyone have a great week. Like, share, subscribe. We'll see you guys next time.